Ambrose, and he's always willing to work on fun new puzzle ideas. Whether it's a collaboration like stretching squares, solving one of his puzzles and finding a moment of unexpected brilliance, or getting honest feedback on one of my own puzzles. Personally, I think Ambrose is just an amazing person and someone I'm thrilled is part of the community.
Ambrose has always been a lovely member of the puzzling community, and his puzzles have a unique style where they make the solver feel smart while also still being approachable. He is also a wonderful person to be around, and his presence has always made any stream better. And you know you are in for a good time when you start an Ambrose puzzle. Hello, everyone. We are back with Ambrose. Yeah, that doesn't sound like Naverio. Naverio had some mic issues, so I had to talk over his text. So that's why it doesn't sound like Naverio at all. Welcome, Ambrose.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm all right. Just realizing that with the stream muted, I didn't hear the intro part, but that's fine.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to send that to you beforehand because I literally made the voiceover for Naverio about an hour ago, so it had just exported before we started, so I didn't have time to
Okay.
upload that and send it to you. But afterwards, you can check that out. Just
Okay.
Analytical Ninja and Naverio talking about what a great guy you are. Anyways, let's get into the questions. First question, let's go for hobbies. Hobbies and interests outside of puzzling. What are you up to?
So let's see. I play a little bit of clawhammer banjo. I do a fair bit of knitting, and I think those are two of the primary ones.
Wow, those are some diverse hobbies. You have a lot of books behind you. What kind of books are you interested in?
Uh, so these are math books, but I read, I would say I read a fair amount of mystery novels. That's probably genre-wise the biggest part of my reading for fiction anyway.
Nice, nice. Uh, so your work, is it involving math?
Yeah.
Professor?
I teach at a college.
Nice, nice. What's your favorite branch of math?
So discrete math is sort of my area, and so that's very interesting. I've gotten more interested in sort of more historical topics, including since I've been teaching geometry. There's some interesting stuff with sort of history of geometry and non-Euclidean geometry and stuff like that. So that's been a more recent thing that I've been more interested in.
Any really cool fact you can tell us about the history of geometry?
Oh gosh. Let's see.
I'm sure you can tell us many facts, but on the spot.
On the spot, there was a proof of the Pythagorean theorem by one of the US presidents, but I can't remember which one right now.
Oh,
But I
that's
bet a bunch of
interesting.
the audience know about that.
Like a unique proof, like something that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I mean, it hadn't been seen at the time, I think. I don't like a lot of the proofs of that theorem tend to blend together a little bit if
Hmm.
you look at a
Yeah,
bunch of them. So, it's wasn't an earth-shaking one, but it's kind of surprising that a president did it.
I
I
think we
think
can
before he was president.
confidently rule out the current president.
Fair.
Are you more of an inside person or an outside person?
Mostly inside. Trying to figure out if you can get the chat someplace where I can see it without obviously uh,
Yeah, it's okay if you
looking
glance
away.
down at the chat. No one will slight you for that. Do you have any
Okay.
unusual talents or skills that we should be aware of?
Well, so the knitting is probably one of the ones I
Yeah,
sort of specialize in sock knitting, and so I'm pretty good at that. I've made like all my socks except for athletic socks and stuff like that for many years now. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. It's cool too that people make things that they can like wear and use. My partner's really into crochet, so she's been making clothes a lot recently. Um, if you were to be interviewed on a different topic, what topic would you choose?
Oh, so yeah, I knew this one was coming. I was thinking about it. I think probably maybe fountain pens would be one. Although I've sort
That's
of
lovely.
the fever has burned out for me a little bit. For a while, I was getting very into sort of collecting as many as possible, but now I've settled down a little bit.
The pen fever. How many would you say you had at your peak?
Oh, like 50 or something.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, like 50 unique, different like collector pens sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Some of them sort of vintage and some of them modern. So
Is that one where like you would keep it in the shrink wrap or something, or because like a pen is a very utility kind of thing? Would you use the pen, or is that like frowned upon?
So I've only gotten pens that I've been sort of willing to use. There are like you'll run across ones where it's like, fairly uncommon, like, models where they only made a few of them for like sales
Hmm.
demonstrations or something. And, if you got one of those, you'd probably be doing a bad thing if you used it. But everything I've gotten has been intended to be used, although sometimes I've regretted using them when they break.
That's a good question, Peter. What wool do you use when you're knitting, or what's your favorite wool to use?
So usually for socks, I think one of my favorite brands is called Trekking. I forget if it's German or not, but it's sort of a standard wool nylon blend. It wears pretty well, and they at least used to have a lot of really cool sort of striping, variegated colorways.
Interesting. Uh, do you have a favorite quote or mantra that you live by?
Hmm. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Okay, easier one. What's your favorite type of weather? What's the ideal temperature for Ambrose?
Probably like Uh, 10 below Fahrenheit is very good. I say
Sorry,
that
just doing the
provocatively,
conversions in
but
my head.
it's kind of sincere. I really like winter. I really
Mhm.
like cold weather. It takes a little while to acclimatize to below zero, but once I'm there,
Right.
I'm very happy with that.
It's so wild to me that people like in Mexico will like die when it's like 0 degrees Celsius or something. Like it's crazy. It's like, oh, it's nice shorts weather or something in my part of the world. um, are you more of a morning person or a night owl?
More night, but changing a little bit as I age, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Uh, do you love what you do for work? Is there a dream job that you wish or aspire to?
I like what I'm doing for work. I think I was sort of expecting if you didn't do this, what would your dream job be? And I've always sort of toyed with, I think a really cool job would be Foley artist, if you know that. That's the sort of people who make practical sound effects in movies and TV and like figure out what sounds like a bone breaking and they bring in some celery and crack it and stuff like that.
That would be a fun job. I
There's a lot
feel
of creativity to that, I think.
I feel like that would like consume my everyday life. Like every time I hear a sound, I'd be like, "Oh, I could use that for this, and this. I need to write this down," sort of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That would be very interesting. Is that something that you've researched into a lot, or just it sounds cool?
Uh, Not researched, like I think probably the first time I thought that would be really interesting was hearing about the sound effects that I think his name's Ben Burt or something like that for Star Wars came up with, how to make a blaster noise and how to make the lightsaber noises, and they're all like super
Hmm.
practical. Like he's not sitting there with a synthesizer, he's like banging on a slinky or something, I think is the one of the noises. And it's like if you put a mic on a slinky and tap it, it just makes this really cool noise.
Yeah, yeah, it does make a cool noise. I can attest to that. Harmonic oscillation demonstrations are kind of like that. Anyways, it's about 10 minutes past, so let's get into the puzzle start stuff. Uh, Now, I was just saying to you that I forgot to bring up the first puzzle that you ever said, but what was that puzzle and what inspired it and what made you want to set that?
So I don't know if the first puzzle, like, did I successfully set a puzzle that I did not post anywhere? That's a
Mm,
possibility, I
right.
think. I, I think the first one that you would find on the CTC server from me was a bad Kropke pairs Sudoku that was just sort of thrown together with no theme and just barely, you know, figured out something that would solve and posted it. So
You're
the
in good
first one that
company
I
then.
felt like, yeah, the first one that I felt like was my first real puzzle, or the first one that I want to acknowledge, was a little bit more deliberate. And I remember when I said it, I think that one's called The Well, is the version I published of that. It was a killer arrow Sudoku. And I remember like my setting process for that was like trying to imagine Simon describing a break in
Hmm.
and then trying to challenge myself, can I make that break in happen? So I just like made up something that I could imagine him talking about, and then sort of tried to make it work, and it worked.
Yeah, that's a good way, I guess, to start is to think about what could a break-in look like, um, in terms of sometimes you have like these dreams or like kind of like daydreams about Sudoku, and I find sometimes they don't even make sense. It's just like that. You think about it for a while, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I should sit down and set that," and you go to sit and set it, and you're like, "What on earth was I thinking? It's just that I can't fit 10 digits into a box. Like, uh, this doesn't work, or that's two threes in the column, or something like that." Yeah. So sometimes the brain gets ahead of itself, but sometimes it works out. Um, I think we had a related question here about, yeah, Analytical Ninja asked, I feel like everyone has one moment that helps them cross the threshold into the realm of setting puzzles. Do you remember what it was that helped inspire you to start setting?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that when I saw that in the forum, but I am having a hard time remembering a specific point when I said, okay, I'm going to start setting a puzzle now. Like I say, the first one was sort of very much just, I think, I imagine I was reading the Discord and seeing the advice about setting is solving, and probably just played around with F puzzles and said, okay, so if I, start putting some dots in and see what I can do, but I don't remember a specific trigger for like when that started.
Is that kind of similar? Like, is that far from what you would do now to set a puzzle?
Um, so I think now a lot of times my setting is more for a purpose, I guess. So I'm not a very active setter, as people might notice, and so I will be setting if a setting competition comes up that fits in my schedule, then I might do that.
Mhm.
If there's somebody's making a pack and asks if I want to contribute something, and there's a theme, I might do that. I made one that I really liked for a pack that Bremster did earlier this year. Um, and I really enjoy doing the Secret Santa ones. That's also another sort of prompt. But I have a bit more, I think, difficulty just sort of motivating myself to come up with something. So I think a lot of times if there's a little bit more structure of somebody's saying, you know, here's a constraint or here's a theme or something like that, it's a little bit more easy for me to get that external motivation, I guess.
It sounds like you're describing like a social kind of setter who's like who sets because of the community and society around him that pushes him to set, which I definitely feel like is similar to you. The prompt that I gave the people, uh, Analytical Ninja and Niverio, and uh, there was another one, but they weren't able to do it. Was what was it? It was like your how what influence have you had on the community or something like that, or how what positive impacts or something like that on the community? Because I feel like you're very much like involved in community efforts like PAX and setting competitions and testing and all these things. Uh, that's how I view your contributions to like everywhere I look. There's Ambrose saying, "Oh, hey, like I'll test that for you," or talking in chat or something. Not
I'm
sure if that
glad to
was a
hear that.
question. Is that how you view yourself as kind of like that person who's driven by the social aspect of the community?
So I think I hadn't thought of it that way. I guess there is an aspect of that uh, that might make sense. Um, I think I was thinking of it more though in terms of just having you know, some kind of framework to work from.
Right.
Uh, and you know, when I don't have a framework of, oh, there's this pack or there's this event or this deadline or you know, holiday or something like that, then I'm less likely to think of something to do. Like
Hmm.
I don't have a lot of ideas that spring into my head just naturally, but I didn't sort of necessarily associate it directly with the social, but I think that might be a part of it too, as you point out.
A lot of people over the years of interviewing have said that like it's easier to set something if you have constraints on your setting. Do you find that like by constraining yourself, you're actually like expanding your ability to set?
Yeah, I think that's definitely for me that tends to be the case. I sort of um, you know, like from that first acknowledged one, the first one that had a proper break in,
Hmm.
you know, having the idea of, okay, here's the way the break in should be developed, you know, drove a lot of how the puzzle was going to look and how it was going to solve. And that made it a lot easier than if I just sort of stared at a blank grid and said, well, what can I do?
Right. Agent asks a little bit unrelated, but Agent asks, "What's your favorite book of all time?" So we'll address that.
So, yeah, I was noticing that. And a lot of times I've said Moby Dick. Uh, that's a novel I have a great liking for still. I did reread it last year, and it was harder to get through than when I was younger. So
Hmm.
I don't know if I've sort of grown apart from it or not, but I still like that a lot.
And I guess we can also answer favorite movie as well for Kodak while we're here.
Yeah, favorite movie. Um, so I think Maltese Falcon was the first one that came to mind for a long time. I feel like I've been a lot more active in watching movies in the past like 4 or 5 years, and probably someday I will sit down and think it through and realize that something else has taken its place. But I'll stick with Maltese Falcon, the Bogart version for now.
Do you have a favorite math book? Because obviously there's a lot of them behind you.
Yeah, yeah. So favorite math book, that is a good question. Oh, what was the one I was thinking of? So I think there's one, I've got to turn around and look at it. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, this one I'm really interested in. So I don't know if that's reversed or not. Geometric folding algorithms. It's not like anything that I've worked on, but it's sort of chock full of uh, just tons of interesting problems in all sorts of dimensions about sort of foldings and linkages and origami and various things. And like, if I think about sort of the kind of desert island question, if you were on a
Mm.
desert island and you could take one book or two books, uh, that one, I feel like you would never run out of problems to think about if you brought that one. It's so densely packed with stuff.
Who's that by? It's like triggering a memory. I think I might have. I don't think I've read the book, but I think my friend might have shown me a few things from it.
So it's by Eric Demain and Joseph O'Rourke. I think I got it at a math meeting where Eric Demain gave a talk, and he seemed like a super wonderkind at the time. So I don't know if he's the first author alphabetically or sort of in terms of impact, but
Well, while we're going, I guess, what's your favorite PC console slash game you, or sorry, PC or slash console game you've ever played? Is Peter Green's question.
okay. So PC/console game favorite ever played. I actually, I want to put Minecraft kind of high on there. I think very highly of Minecraft as sort of a general game that has many games within it. Like it just
Yeah.
does so many things and had such a huge influence on how things got changed in gaming at that time.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes I think people just accept it as a given almost and don't think about it. Definitely a good answer. And I'm just realizing now that we forgot to put up the Patreon supporters and others on screen during the start. So I'll spend a little bit of time just. So this is, I'm just going to put on screen for a minute. These are everyone who's ever supported me. Thank you to all these people. Wonderful people listed here. They're all amazing. Um, I really appreciate a lot of people on this list. There are still some people who are supporting me on Patreon. I don't know why you're supporting me on Patreon. I've tried to make them stop before, but they say that I've the stuff that I put up is already enough. Uh, I'll refund you if you want. These are still Patreon supporters, and they are so very, very wonderful people who are supporting me just for the fact that I've made the things in the past, and obviously I've taken a long break between this and the previous endeavors of, say, the Catadoku Biller and stuff. But uh, thank you to these people; they are wonderful. Some of them have given a lot of their well earned money to me, and I really appreciate that. It definitely helps to support things like the quality of these streams and stuff and the time that I put in. So I'll leave these names up for a little bit, but let's go back to puzzles. I think Agent had asked a question. Yes, this question is obviously very important. What's your favorite genre of pencil puzzles and why is it Ring Ring?
So that was a pretty good guess. I do like Ring Ring a whole lot. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think if that's my real answer or not, but it's pretty high up there. Uh, I think Ring Ring is a kind of an intriguing puzzle genre to me, just because it's one of those where the clues are all there, and you can't decide to put in a clue or not. Like, it just
Mhm.
all the black squares that are not going to be used are there. It's not optional. It's like the ultimate, what's the word? Negative constraint, uh, in some sense. And I think I just like the way that it, uh, messes with you to have things crossing over, and you always forget until
Yeah.
you've done like 10 of them. And uh, the fact I like also that there's not some like deep meta that you need to learn, or at least if there is, I haven't found it yet. So it sort of stays at a mid level in terms of, I like puzzles where you can just sort of sit there and look for the next deduction, and it's not going to be that hard. And you know, if it's well made, it's not like uh, you're going to have to come up with a new theorem or something.
Yeah. I don't know of any theorems in Ring Ring, but I imagine most of them are pretty simple if they exist. And if you're not familiar with Ring Ring, I think I have a video where I try Ring Ring and then set a Ring Ring on this channel. So go find that. Maybe link in the description if I remember. Um, great puzzle type. I noticed that you started with pencil puzzles fairly early in terms of setting and solving. Uh, Makes you a bit of a, I wouldn't say a unicorn, but more rare than others who kind of spend uh, the years in Sudoku and then realize, oh, there are other puzzles here. What made you go for the pencil puzzle so early?
Well, so this is actually, yeah, I'm remembering there was a question that I screwed up earlier, and I was going to be prepared for it. But when you asked about the first puzzle, like, I was supposed to take a page from, I'm trying to remember who it was. It was somebody that started with A on your profiles, and said their first puzzle was in a video game that they set.
Uh,
And I was going to say that.
Turgenis? Turgenis?
Yeah, yeah, Turganis. Okay. Yes, Turganis. That doesn't start with A, but never mind. Uh, so the um, thing I should have said there was, there's an old game back in, I think it was probably in the 80s, I think, called Lode Runner, LODE. And it was a sort of a single screen side view platformer game. But it was one of the earliest things I ever saw that had a level editor. So level editor in the 80s was something kind of special. And so I had that on the Apple IIe, and you could make your own levels, and you were a little character. You're trying to collect all the gold blocks on the level without getting attacked by the enemies, and you only had a shovel to dig with. But it was really cool because you could sort of set these things up where you can't get to certain parts of the screen yourself. You have to have enemies bring the gold to you from
Hmm.
there, and sort of stuff like that. Um, so there's that. But in terms of your question was about pencil puzzles, because I was going to say also, uh, before Sudoku existed, I think I was doing pencil puzzles. So Games Magazine was sort of uh, a magazine. I think it might have existed fairly recently. I don't know. But when I was a kid, I got Games Magazine, which was this magazine about mostly board games, but it also had a puzzle section.
Cool.
And I feel like that had things that we would recognize as pencil puzzles. I feel like I have false memories, though, of some of like the Nicoli pencil puzzles appearing in there. And I tried to look up, and I don't think the dates work out. But I could swear that that I did Slitherlink puzzles in there. I'm pretty sure Slitherlink was in there. Um,
Well, it's
and I think,
is Slitherlink invented by Nicoli, or because it's
I
possible
can't
that
remember
they?
if that one was. Hopefully somebody in chat knows.
I mean, it doesn't have a
But the other one
Japanese name, so maybe not.
true. The other one I was thinking of was Akari. That that always feels really familiar to me, like I was doing it when I was, in my teens or something like that. But I think I looked up the dates and that one didn't fit. So I must have been thinking of something else.
Was
But anyway, so
invented
those I
by
was
Nikolai
doing. Which
Sleelan
one?
Slytherin. It was originally known as Sleelan, I guess. Hmm,
Okay.
weird. Didn't know that. Cool. Anyways,
So yeah, I was doing pencil puzzles before Sudoku was popularized anyway. So that was not too unusual for me to sort of be interested in that.
did you ever think about making your own little puzzles when you were solving those, or?
So I think the only ones there was dominoes puzzles, which I liked, but looking back, I think they're kind of probably pretty awful. It's basically you just take a set of dominoes and you put them into a rectangular grid as close to square as you can, uh, and then you record the numbers, but you don't record the edges, and you have to deduce where, like, deduce what the layout of the dominoes is, which numbers go with which in domino
Oh,
pairs.
yeah, I think I remember something like that, a similar puzzle. Yeah, yeah. It
And
it's not very good, but yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, I sort of was. I remember remembering it at some point after I started doing Sudoku and wondering if it still existed, and found some website that would computer generate them, and they were pretty lousy. And but I remember, I think I wrote a computer program to generate them for me when I was in, like, when back in the 80s or something.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that was the closest thing. And I think, I didn't have the concept of puzzles being something that were intentionally made
Right, yeah.
when I was young.
It seems so weird that I feel like that's very common that you just don't think, yeah, these would be intentionally made, not just like generated by technology. But of course, I'm pretty sure puzzles existed before technology even could generate them. So that wouldn't even make sense, but it's something I feel like a lot of people just take for granted. Like, oh yeah, of course, these are just generated by some computer rather than actually designed.
Yep. And I definitely thought that for a while.
So was Games Magazine your first introduction to puzzles?
Yeah, I think so. I also liked some board games that were very puzzle-like. I don't know if people know Black Box. That was a game from, I think, the 70s. It was sort of battleship-like in that you were trying to deduce the location of unknown objects in a grid. Uh, but the idea was that instead of just calling out locations and finding out whether they were there or not, you would shoot laser beams into this grid from the sides and the top and the bottom. And there were rules about how the laser beam would bounce off the objects, and you'd be told where the laser beam came out, or if it got absorbed or something like that, and you would try to deduce from that
Yeah,
where the opponent's objects were. And I think I've seen somebody make a Sudoku along those lines, but I can't remember if that's correct or not.
it sounds familiar. Um, so were puzzles always a part of your life, or did they kind of have a resurgence when you discovered CTC and the whole puzzle community kind of thing?
Yeah, they definitely had a resurgence with that summer of 2020 when I started watching CTC. And like, I was aware of Sudoku back when it had its sort of first wave of popularity in the early 2000s. Uh, but I think I thought of it as very limited because I only knew of classic Sudoku. I never saw any variants or any other rules that could be used with it. And so it was just classic Sudoku, and it was those were probably a lot of computer generated ones that weren't made with a lot of intent or solve path or anything like that. So it wasn't that interesting
Yeah.
at the time. And then I got into the YouTube bandwagon at some point.
Let's go to talk about your insane testing streak because Ambrose, you test so many puzzles. I swear. I looked at the number of messages you have in puzzle testing feedback. I'm not sure if this is a lot or a little, but it's definitely a lot more than me. You have a 1,000 over 1,500 messages in puzzle testing feedback, and just for comparison, like I have about 650 in that channel, and most of mine are I'm stuck, I need a hint, or like thank you for solving my puzzle, whereas your messages are usually uh, I solved this puzzle, and then a paragraph of really helpful feedback information about yourself. So, what keeps bringing you back to that testing channel?
That's really gratifying to hear. So I go like streak is the right word because I will go like months without going back to the CTC server and doing that. But then every once in a while, I'm like, oh yeah, that is a way to get interesting puzzles. I think um, I like uh, I like seeing a brand new puzzle. Often I like seeing a brand new puzzle from a brand new setter. That's always something that sort of catches my eye if somebody is making a puzzle that looks doable to me and they're like, this is my first puzzle ever. That's always really exciting to be able to give a little feedback and give a welcome to setting. Uh, if I notice that uh, it is limited in that, like, I don't generally test puzzles if they have like a page full of some completely new rule that I have to sort of figure out how to draw a something or other that I've never done before with various weird constraints. I'm very, very biased towards sort of existing constraints combined in a nice way is definitely my catnip. But yeah, I like to uh, do a little bit of testing and see what people are coming up with. That's always fun.
Yeah, for sure. I really uh, +1 to the solving someone's first puzzle uh, thing. That's always so gratifying. Um, so, I mean,
I
related.
remember, I think
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think I tried to solve, I think it was Mixo's first puzzle posted there. And like, knowing Mixo as a setter now, you can imagine like I saw that puzzle and I was like, oh my God, there's something amazing going on here. But it was above my like pay grade. I couldn't solve it. But I think I don't often post to testing if I can't solve it, to be honest. But that time I was like, I'm stuck, but this is amazing, and I hope somebody who's better than me gets to it, so you can get some better feedback,
Hmm.
something like that.
Yeah, it's always fun to not only solve someone's puzzle for the first time, but if they continue to set puzzles and be involved in the community, then you always like root for that person. You're like, yes, like they're succeeding, they're growing, and it's so heartwarming. Um, you, yeah, we already talked about how you tend to set like selectively, um, and you tend to solve a lot of puzzles in the testing uh, section of CTC. Do you think it's important for people to be solving more puzzles than they set? Like, do you think people will learn more if they solve more puzzles than they set?
I think probably honestly, there are people who can set really well without solving a lot of other people's puzzles. I think there are people who have some really, creative ideas that just come to them. Um, I think it's a good way to learn, but, I'm not gonna say that everybody has to solve more and, than they set. So I think it's good to do some of that, but, I think there are definitely people who have their own insights, and that can really sort of drive things in interesting ways if you're not sort of, uh, if you're sort of finding ideas that you're not seeing anybody else work with. So that's also interesting.
Yeah, I I knew you were gonna give a very balanced response to that question when I wrote it, because you're a very kind person, like analytical. When you just said you're always very honest without crossing into harsh territory. Um, uh, I definitely agree with what you said, and I think maybe people who feel like they're in a setting slump that they can't like figure out something new to set, they should be maybe solving a little bit more than they're setting. Don't just keep trying to look at the blank canvas. Go for some puzzles. See some inspiration. Um, let's see here. Let's go to an audience question. Uh, Isaiah asked a question. What is your favorite variant or genre? Probably variant, since we already asked a puzzle. It's a puzzle genre, but you can answer whatever you want.
So I think, my sort of comfort zone rule set is probably arrow. That sort of is the one. If I am setting and want to do something, without any particular idea, I might just sort of play around with arrows. Uh, it's definitely something that I'm gonna, uh, pay attention and take a look at a puzzle if I'm thinking of testing it or solving it on LMD that has arrows and sort of standard variants in combination with that. Those are usually pretty appealing. I don't think it's the most interesting, and it has some limitations that, sort of are not ideal, but I think it's just sort of like I say, a comfort zone. It's one that I've been working with longer than anything else, and so that sort of, uh, feels like the right answer there.
For sure. I feel like there are definitely arrow. Just Kodak saying, where does the comfort with arrows even come from? Um, like there's definitely like an arrow type personality for setters, like someone who's comfortable with arrows, very comfortable. I feel like there's a group of arrow lovers that I just like I can recognize that that person loves arrows, you know. I don't know what it is, what characteristics define that, but do you agree?
Well, yeah, reading that, I can't believe what I'm reading, but, the yeah, I'm not sure what it is other than probably just solving a lot of them. I think I just, uh, have always found them kind of appealing. They like, I would say, to me, Killer Sudoku is kind of the opposite in the sense that, well, not a full opposite. Killer Sudoku is one where I feel like I don't have a handle on how to make that work almost at all. It's really difficult for me to get a good killer set, and yet Arrow, in a sense, is just this weird combination of one cell equaling the sum of a bunch of others, and so it's got sort of that arithmetic, the summation of killer, but it's very limited, like I say, especially if, like me, I don't like pill arrows, so I don't
Oh yeah,
do
who likes
uh,
pill arrows,
two-digit.
honestly?
Yeah. Um, so it is a weird thing, but I think it's probably just a matter of doing a lot of them and liking the geometry of them. But my respect for people who set good killers is just through the roof. I'm just astonished by good killer puzzles.
I feel like naively one would assume that like killer and arrow are like the same, but then because the sum, well, specifically when setting, right? When the sum is not determined by the setter, it's so different. Like the process to create that is such a different thing. And then like region sum lines as well, like it's very similar to arrow, but I feel like it's almost a little bit closer to killer because you can kind of set like the you can adjust the amount of one side of the arrow or not, which is yeah, where I find is very helpful with the region sum to get my brain to accept it more. I'm not an arrow person. I do not understand arrow very well. Uh,
Yeah, I think like if I had started getting into Sudoku later, probably region sum would be more to my taste than arrow because it sort of undoes that sort of avoidance of double digits and stuff like that that you have to fuss around with arrows. But when I was starting there, I didn't know of any region sum line puzzles
mhm.
at least. I don't know when they got used, and there's always sort of predating that you find out, oh, well, actually back in 1998 or something, but who knows?
The earliest I've heard is like I want to say 2023, maybe 2024, somewhere around there. But yeah, not the oldest, but not the newest. But yeah, constraints is such an interesting topic of discussion. I feel like if a if a large language model had to classify setters, that would be like one of the primary characteristics is like what is the preferred constraint of this setter, um, or preferred variant of Sudoku. Keith Mower 921 had a question, which was on YouTube, so you might not have seen it. Keith had asked, and he gave a little bit of a preamble to it. So he said easier puzzles tend to be solved by more people than harder puzzles, but harder puzzles could give more kudos. Uh, Not sure what that means, but interpret that how you will. Um, uh, I guess more clout kind of thing, I guess, sort of thing, like more genius. And he asks, what are your thoughts about designing puzzle difficulty? Is it better to have a puzzle seen by more people or to maintain a challenging reputation?
So I think, yeah, that's something I wanted to get into and had forgotten that I wanted to get into. That's a good question. I don't think of myself as a very like difficult. I don't solve a lot of very difficult puzzles, and I don't try to set a lot of difficult puzzles. That sort of doesn't come naturally to me. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask about if you want, like, if you're trying to do difficult puzzles or trying to set difficult puzzles. That's something that I don't sort of gravitate towards. I don't. I think, it's a cliche, but I think the cliche is true that you just want to have a puzzle with good ideas in it, and they can be good easy ideas, and then a lot of people can appreciate them. They can be good hard ideas, and then a smaller number of people, but people who maybe think more deeply about the puzzles will appreciate them. But that's like the key thing. You can have a 5 star that has a really good idea. You can have a 2 star that has a really good idea, and those are both good. And
Yeah.
like, hopefully you can do something like that at least once.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the question would be interesting to ask you because you're not someone who I feel like has a challenging reputation or a clout for difficulty sort of thing. Um, and I mean, the easy kind of cop out answer is like, well, I just don't make hard puzzles. That's not something I do. Um, is there like, would you ever envy that or desire that, or is that just like that's not who you are?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think I don't know a lot of what goes into making puzzles that hard.
Hmm.
Uh, so I don't know if I have that. I also sort of struggled sometimes with rating puzzles for difficulty just because I know like most 5-star puzzles I cannot do or I won't get through. And so I sort of don't know exactly where to draw the lines of 4 to 5 stars for me, if I know that the upper end of that is outside of my solving skill.
Right.
So that I think is a little tricky.
It's funny. I think people who set like 1 to 3 star puzzles usually are always they rate their own puzzles as being 1 to 3 stars because they're like, well, I don't set hard puzzles, so this is not going to be hard. But it's funny because people who set 5 star puzzles all the time also always rate their puzzles easier than they are because they think, well, these ideas are so simple, and then they end up being very, very hard. Um, I think it's funny that both ends of the spectrum tend to rate lower than it usually is, which might be something to do with difficulty inflation, but uh, not a thought I've had before. Uh, but yeah, it definitely is. People are saying in the chat that you always have very interesting ideas. I think I don't know if you read the subtitles there, but Naverio had said that your puzzles are always. He said they make the solver feel smart, but are still approachable, which I think is a good way to describe it.
That's really nice to hear.
Are there any like puzzle genres or variants that you're like, oh, that really sounds interesting, but uh, you can never get it to like vibe right, like it just won't work out in the end?
So I think for a while I wanted to set a look air puzzle, actually. That was something that I have had an interest in since I think somebody, I don't remember the username, but somebody put together, I love when people put together a how-to guide of some particular pencil puzzle genre that they really understand well. And somebody made a guide for look air that sort of introduces all the sort of major concepts and had example puzzles along the way. That was really cool, but I've never gotten around to making one of those that actually works. I always think of that as sort of a weird technical genre. Um, and in terms of like Sudoku wise, I'm sort of uh, I always like I think I sort of have an impulse to try all of the uh, I don't want to say fads. I don't want to be dismissive, but all the things that sort of get into fashion and uh, that people do. So definitely, I want to do a chaos construction. I don't think I've done one of those before. I'd like to do a deconstruction one. I'm sure I haven't done one of those before. But there's a lot of, if you look at sort of my catalog, there's a lot of sort of one-off things that I do to kind of get the curse off. Okay, I did one of those. I did a, a an SL puzzle. I did a squish doku. I did this, that kind of things.
I
But
can't
yeah,
tell.
definitely I want to do
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. You want to do?
I want to do chaos construction, deconstruction. Those are definitely on my list, and
Mhm.
probably some other sort of pencil puzzle Sudoku hybrid will come along that I want to do.
Have you not set a pencil puzzle Sudoku hybrid yet?
Oh, I've done some. Yeah, no,
Okay,
I'm
okay.
saying there'll probably be some genre that I haven't done that with yet.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, I've done.
Because I was like, I swear you've done at least. I think I definitely saw at least one, more than one, maybe. Um, uh, Playmaker had asked a question here, which I think is an interesting question. What's the very first puzzle you set that you immediately thought, wow, this is among my best puzzles for sure, and it turned out to be true. That's a very specific question, but interesting.
Let's see. Um, so in terms of it turned out to be true, is that supposed to be sort of, I guess the questioner probably isn't going to reply in time, but is that in like the judgment of history or
I
so
think
I
your
think,
own judgment too could work.
well, one I wanted to mention was there's a puzzle I made. Again, this was one of those sort of there's a fashion going around and I want to do it once. There's a puzzle I made with set um, a set break-in that was a pure arrow set break-in puzzle. Uh, and once I figured out what was going on with it and what I could, how I could finish it up and stuff like that, uh, I thought it was really pretty amazing. But I thought also that it would not be as popular because of set and because that was kind of played out at the time and
Right.
because of um, some people really don't like that, which is fine. Uh, and it's ironic because for that reason, I put off posting that one to LMD for a long time. And then finally, uh, I posted it uh, after a long time. And now it's the highest rated puzzle I have there, which was surprising to me.
Think I found the right one. 14 times 2.
Yep, that's the one.
It's a very pretty grid. Yeah,
Yeah, that was one where it
I think you
had
can see it.
at that period, I was also very interested in, I liked playing with arrows and parity, and that comes into play if you sort of take the most efficient path there. Um, it ends up having some really nice things that you can sort of smooth through uh, if you use the parity idea.
Nice. I love arrow parity deductions. That's definitely my favorite part of arrows because it's so obvious, but also mind bending the way that you can say that it's yeah, it's cool. Um, uh, talk about making the hybrid puzzles, whether it's Sudoku with the puzzle or something else. Like, how do you combine those ideas together to make some kind of cohesive product?
Yeah, I think that's another one where probably I, learned from solving in a lot of that case where I see, okay, so, did somebody do something with a different genre? And I try to sort of figure out, okay, how did they go about this? But I think, um, trying to think which ones I've done that are hybrids. I know there's the one with Sashigane, and that was, you know, a really different genre to me and had some, sort of weird geometry of like figuring out where these shapes can fit. Uh, but the uh, way of putting the clues in that sort of lets you drive things forward both with Sudoku and with the pencil puzzle genre is always kind of interesting. I think that's a really important skill is sort of having the right idea for what can I have the interaction between the genres be. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing a pencil puzzle with a Sudoku, do you have clues that um, use numbers from the Sudoku that are part of numeric clues in the genre? That sort of is an obvious direction, or you can do sort of very different things. If you're doing a shading genre, then you have that affect the values of the Sudoku or whatever for different clues. Uh, I wanted to shout out one that's not my puzzle, but it was Solver Tom made this amazing uh, Choco Banana Sudoku hybrid that I really loved and got to test for him and suggested the interaction that he ended up going with. But it was just this incredible construction because the entire grid was filled with Choco Banana and every Choco Banana region was a Renban,
Hmm.
and you had to develop all the regions that way. I just couldn't believe that actually got pulled off, but it worked.
Right. Yeah. It's really, really interesting to combine the various things. You did a Choco Banana 10 lines I can see here, walkie talkies.
Yeah.
Is that kind of inspired by that Solver Tom thing?
Yep. That was.
What do you think about taking inspiration or seeing your puzzles inspire other people?
Oh, I think it's good. I think like I really enjoy the way that ideas will sort of bounce around the community. Um, yeah, I think, you know, when it's like I say, it's a little easy to sort of think of it as fads, but it is really neat to see, you know, a new variant or a new line constraint or something, you know, get used, and then everybody gets new ideas and fresh ideas and sort of brings that into play and sees, you know, what can we do with that. It's always fun to see that, you know, sometimes it's not like a thing I'm into, but uh, it's really neat to see things bounce around from person to person.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of bouncing ideas around, have you done any collaborative setting, and what value do you see in collaborative setting?
Yes, I've definitely done some collaboration. I'm hoping to do some more very soon now. I've worked with I think Analytical Ninja the most and Rock Rat Zero. I remember we made a three-person collaboration for a pack once that I thought was one of the best things I've contributed to. Um, and uh, let's see, I wanted to call out, I think it was Oberon. I did a really cool uh, puzzle with, I think around the same time in the same pack, possibly. But that sort of gave me an idea that I carried into a later puzzle that I did. Um, I did as part of a competition recently-ish with Oddly Even. I collaborated on a puzzle that was a setting competition sort of format. I am terrified that I'm forgetting people now, but I value the collaborations I've done, and I think that I learn a lot from them. I think I would say one of my weaknesses as a solver and a setter is oftentimes a little bit of a lack of persistence. And as a setter, particularly, I tend to be uh, I get to a point and I'm like, okay, now this solves and it has a decent solve path and I'll publish it. And uh, a thing I learn in collaboration is often that you can say, okay, well, okay, now we know we can do it. Can we improve it and sort of iterate on it? And that's a thing that I think working with collaborators can help to drive that forward. I know Analytical Ninja really helped hone a puzzle that we did that was stretching squares that uh, came together so much better and so much, you know, tighter and more aesthetically pleasing and with a great solve path, much more than I would have on my own, for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah, I tend to throw it in testing right away, and then after it kind of marinates, I'm like, actually, I think this could be better. But I should probably practice marinating before getting people to try the first version, which isn't great. Which would be help if everyone did that, then we would have a lot less need of testing.
Yeah, and it's nice to like that format of the sort of uh, collaboration can almost be like sort of a closed testing kind of situation where we're all trying it out, and then you get multiple views on, okay, this step is maybe less fair, or this is not that good. But I get very impatient if I'm working on my own and I'm like, oh yeah, it works now, got to put it out there.
Yeah, the the funniest thing about setting collaboratively is when you take like a deduction that someone else has said for granted, or they take something that you've said for granted, and then you're solving later and you're like, how did we get past here? Like I have no idea what to look at, what is going on right now. And then you realize that a step is a little bit more intense than either of you had thought because you're not viewing it from their side anymore. You're like having to do it yourself, which is always very helpful to see the other side. Da, da, da. Would you set puzzles if nobody would solve them? My word, how can I speak?
uh Probably once in a blue moon. I think the setting process is, it almost is it is so closely aligned to the solving process, but with the sort of added mystery of I don't know what the clues are yet.
Mhm.
It's I think it still is fun on its own, but it's definitely fun to share it.
Do you find more enjoyment in solving or setting?
I think I probably find more regular enjoyment in solving because I solve a lot more
Mm,
than I set. Uh, Getting something set that actually, lives up to what I hope for is better than the peaks of solving, though. So it sort of is a quality versus quantity kind of thing.
right, right. Yeah, sometimes solving can just be going through the motions a little bit, even though it is enjoyable. Even if you are just going through the motions, like solving like those domino puzzles we were talking about before. It's just kind of going through the motions, but it's still enjoyable in a way. Is the testing channel like the first place that you go to look for a puzzle when you want to solve something?
Um, it varies. I sort of will periodically poke into LMD and just do the search newest puzzles page, which I gather from reading some comments that a lot of people just never do that, but I still will do that from time to time and just see who's on there, and if there are puzzles that catch my eye. It would be nice if there are a lot of aspects of design of the site that would be nice, but like it would be nice if there was thumbnails of the grid so I could more easily spot things that are likely to appeal to me. But I go there fairly often, and a lot of times it's just me checking to see if something that I did in testing, in the past week maybe turns up there, and then I like to be able to log the solve. So I sort of mix between testing channels and just the LMD search.
Yeah, notice to all setters, please do link your LMD pages to your testers. I don't know why people are not doing this. Just it's so much work as testers to go through and find the puzzles that you have solved, just send them a link. It's not hard, uh, so that
Well,
people don't have to look through them.
I will say I can understand not doing that and
Really?
having anxiety about doing that,
Oh,
or
okay. I mean,
feeling
I don't
pushy.
think anyone needs to be anxious about it. They solve the
I'm
puzzle.
saying I can understand it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
So
fair enough. Maybe not a notice. Maybe a word of advice is an idea. It should automatically do it. That would be awesome if we could have something that automatically sends it, just like a notification sort of thing. Um, oh, I forgot to ask. I guess, I mean, I know the answer, of course. I always ask the question, even though I know the answer. How long did it take you to get your first CTC feature? And
uh,
how did that feel?
so it took a while, and it uh, I think I had the kind of um, let me know if this is altering anything on your side. I'm trying to look through my archive channel.
No?
Um, okay, good. So I remember it actually came out right fairly close to my birthday, and it was a complete surprise. I had sort of self-recommended a couple of things uh, to the CTC channel with no result, and I didn't sort of expect that anything was going to happen, but uh, then it worked out, and uh, was a surprise. So I felt really good about it. It sort of wasn't the puzzle that I was um, hoping for most, but it was a puzzle I was proud of. So that was kind of um, interesting process. But I think, like many people, it was sort of the kind of thing where, especially at that time, maybe I don't know if it's still true today, but feeling like you want to get on the channel to sort of be a real setter and that kind of thing, um, was a thing I could understand and uh, felt. And then sort of after you get on there, you can chill out a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, it's I feel like there could be psychological studies done about this community and the effect of features or something. Because I don't, there's so much weird emotions and feelings about setters and like I don't know. I guess there's probably a more general way to talk about this, like getting your work. I guess maybe even like publications, really. Uh, like getting recognized in a way, you know what I mean? For our
Yeah.
artwork or creative work is very emotionally impacting, regardless of what the context is, and it definitely sticks with someone. Is it? I know, or is this your only feature on CTC? I think so, right?
No, I've had one collab with Analytical
Right, right, sorry.
Ninja, and the Sashigane one
Right, right,
also
right.
was on
I
there, I think.
I think I filtered the catalog too strictly when I was looking for
Ah,
the first one. Um, I didn't. I was like, what? There's only one? No, that's not true. Um, but yeah, sometimes it's like uh, definitely when it's been a while, it can feel weird about it. People feel weird about not being featured regularly enough, or like they're not a real setter anymore, or they're not a good setter anymore. But uh, definitely nobody should feel that way about that. That everyone is who's setting puzzles and putting themselves out there creatively should feel good about what they're doing, uh, because it's the creative expression itself that's uh, worth it, not this recognition that we're all really craving. But yeah,
Yep, agree.
yeah. And we've talked way too much about this in this series. All right.
I would also just add to that, like,
Mhm.
and I think I hope it's like also getting better in this sense of there are more and more channels that are doing it, and you can have sort of a variety. Like I'm very proud to have puzzles on Bremster's channel, and I was super proud to when Naverio wanted to stream my whole catalog. Like that was amazing to me. So it's not just the CTC channel.
Yeah, definitely. And um, yeah, it's I think the enjoyment that I get at least from seeing someone solve my puzzle, whether it's in the voice chat or on CTC, is equal in terms of like feeling that pride and that recognition. So I definitely uh, echo what you just said.
Yeah, voice chat specifically, I'm still like super uncomfortable with how Discord voice chat works, and I feel like a fish out of water there, but I'm happy if somebody pings me there and to sort of awkwardly try to watch and not know if I'm doing it right. But uh, that feeling aside, I'm very, very happy anytime anybody wants to solve and have any sort of presentation of any puzzle I did.
I I love or I loved solving puzzles in the voice chat, like testing puzzles in the voice chat. But at a certain point, I felt like I was cursed by voice chat. Like every puzzle I tried in voice chat, I would just like sit there for hours, and it would be like I'm wasting this person's time. um, but I don't know. So I just stopped doing that. So I don't know. Voice chat curse. What setters do you feel like your style is most similar to, or do you feel like you've been inspired by any setters, or setters have had an impact on your way of setting or doing things?
Um, so let's see. I feel like I'm terrified to name anybody as influencing my setting because I don't sort of think my setting is up to the level of the people that I admire as setters. Uh, I would just sort of mention like, there are setters that I really like to solve their puzzles and feel like I get something out of. Round Planner is one that comes to mind. Analytical Ninja. Uh, Trying to think of others, and there are obviously like um, the gas setters are amazing to me. Like I try to uh, I aspire to learn something about how to set an easy Sudoku from that channel someday, but I haven't yet. But that is like a an amazing clinic to look at the history of that, and just see sort of the thought of what goes into crafting a really clear solve path that's designed to be accessible to everybody.
Mhm.
I think those are really amazing. Um, and, for me, as someone who doesn't really aspire to make the hardest puzzles, I think that's something that I should pay more attention to.
And we're gonna interview one of them later this month, Bill Murphy. But it's crazy to me the consistency of that project and the fact that it's like they're not getting paid or anything to do this. It's daily puzzles, and it's not easy to make a really easy puzzle. It's actually quite you have to be quite deliberate to do that. It's not easy. So crazy. They're crazy. Absolutely. Massive respect. So, I mean, I think everyone wants me to ask what what setters do you admire that you didn't want to name as inspiration?
Oh gosh. Oh, I'm trying to think now. I mean, some subsets of that, like Clover is amazing in terms of both ends of the spectrum, in terms of making super hard things and super clear and accessible things. That sort of level of control of the craft is amazing to me. Um, oh gosh, trying to think who else. Drawing such a blank now.
It's okay.
I can't think of names.
There are too many to name, so don't worry about
That's
it.
true. Yeah.
We can leave it there. Um, do you often create many versions of the same puzzle before you find something that you really like, or do you just like one and done sort of thing?
So yeah, this goes back to my bad quality, my bad trait of, once I get it working, I feel a huge compulsion to put it out there. And so it's not that common for me to sort of revise as much as I should. There are cases where I have, and like one that I wanted to mention is on the catalog as Gyroscope 3.0, which gives an indication of why that was the case. That was an idea that I got in a speed setting competition. I failed to complete a puzzle during the time for the speed setting, but I had this sort of skeleton that was way more constrained than I realized it was, because I think in that picture, if you take out the big cage, uh, that actually has exactly 10 solutions, if I remember right. And so, like, I stumbled on that during the speed setting, and I couldn't like come up with a disambiguator that I liked, and I played around with a couple, and this is the third version that I ended up with. I think fully a year after the first time I saw this grid. So that was sort of the most heavy revision of a grid that I ever did in terms of pursuing the ideas and trying to get it to work uh, as well as it could.
Yeah, it's always interesting to stumble upon something in the speed setting competition that you can't quite figure out what you want to do with it, but it's very interesting. Um, Talk about speed setting competitions. What are those, and why do you enjoy participating in them? I'm sure there's at least one person who's listening, not necessarily right now, but eventually, who has never done a speed setting competition. Why should they try one?
Yeah, so speed setting competitions come up fairly often on the CTC Discord server and elsewhere. The basic idea is that somebody will come up with an idea of they want to have a bunch of people compete to set a puzzle in a specific amount of time. And, uh, it might be 45 minutes or an hour or a half hour, varies pretty considerably. And it is a challenge for sure. I think it's one of those things where the it comes back to the idea of putting constraints on your work, and that can be something that leads to a that channels what you're doing more effectively than if you just sort of sat down and had all day to work on something, and it it really lights a fire under you.
Yeah,
Um, I have not done that many of them, but the few that I've done, like I think I've completed successfully a puzzle in the time limit maybe two or three times for a speed setting competition. So it's not very often. Um, but I think it is always an interesting exercise if you go into it with the idea that I'm not going to get the perfect polished puzzle unless maybe I'm someone other than me. Maybe some people do that. I get amazed by some of the things people pull off in speed setting, but I think again the idea of coming into it and uh, hoping to get an idea that like I think that gyroscope one was sort of one of the first speed setting competitions I tried, and that sort of set a really nice mark of, well, I didn't get a puzzle done, but I got a really interesting idea, and that gives me something to work on in the future. So I think that's a nice way to approach them.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes when I was commuting to university on the train, I would say to myself, I have like the amount of time that I can travel on the train to set a break in, just to like force myself to like make a break in. And a Sudoku maker is so awesome that you can set with on a phone, because that kind of like forced me to actually come up with something, and then I could use that later on, which was always interesting to do. Um,
I think another interesting thing with speed setting is it makes you very conscious of like what are your go-to ideas, because in a time pressured setting you're like, okay, how can I disambiguate this? And you will find out, like, am I a black dot person? Am I a given digit person? Am I
mhm,
this, that, or the other?
yeah.
Like that is sort of very telling, and I think instructs you about what are your sort of go-to comfort things. And then if you're interested in expanding your repertoire, you can say, well, can I set a puzzle without doing that, without doing what was my most natural instinct?
When it comes down to it, you would put the black dot in there too. And sort of thing. Um, yeah, I think my most recent, I did a pencil puzzle setting speed setting competition recently, and it was interesting to I had to decide to really restrict the rules because I was like, oh, this idea doesn't work unless this is the case. Well, let's just change the rules so it is the case. And I never like thought that way before. Like I can just change the rules so that we can only have I pentominoes in this direction, vertical direction, instead of allowing them to be horizontal. And not all pentominoes, just eyes. I don't know. Uh, Trying to like just finagle the rules so that an idea could work nicely is uh, definitely not something that I had thought of like when I had unlimited time. But when you're pressured, it's interesting to uh, change up what you're doing. Are there any puzzles that really stand out to you as like uh, this is the best puzzle I've ever made, or this is the most Ambrose like puzzle that I have in my catalog?
Yeah, so the one I would call out as sort of my sentimental favorite is, I think, Cheviot for a Sudoku puzzle. Uh, it is an Arrow XV puzzle, and that was sort of the culmination of my playing with arrows and parity phase, and it just worked so well, and it had so many steps that I really liked, and uh, I liked the grid, and it was just so fun.
Is there anything that inspired this, or just the break an idea, or was there constraints placed upon you for this one, or
No, this was, like I say, I had done sort of a series, and I had this silly idea at the time of, I'm terrible at naming puzzles, and so I think at the time, was that by the time Zeta was naming everything with cities, or somebody else was naming things with cities, and I was trying to think of what can I name puzzles after, and these were all named after breeds of sheep because I'm a knitter. And so I had like a series of four, I think, arrow puzzles, usually with some other constraint, often with a a Kropke pairs or something like that, and just playing around with, you know, doing things with how the parity interacts with arrows. And this one ended up just being uh, the best version of any of those that I could do.
I missed a question from Chameleon, and now I'm forgetting uh, about the specific instance. So maybe I'll have to remind me. What was more challenging to you, regular speed setting competitions or participating in the caterpillar setting on stream?
So I think the caterpillar setting had the added sort of nervousness of being on, being live in front of people. And as a result, I confess, I probably over prepared for that particular thing. I had picked my uh, constraint and, tried out doing a couple of time limited 6x6 sets with the constraint. So I sort of knew uh, tricks that I could fall back on if things seemed to be uh, going badly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helped that go very smoothly. Speed setting competitions can be all over the place. It seems to me one thing I would say about speed setting competitions that is that oftentimes I'm a little bit off put by them because they feel like really elaborate constraints to me sometimes. And I sort of yearn for just a really simple speed setting competition. And of course, I know the response you could give to that is, well, you should host one, and so maybe I will someday. But uh, I think more basic speed setting competitions would be fun, sort of ones with uh, familiar concepts and just go to it with a time limit.
Yeah, I kind of like the ones that are a theme that you can interpret it however you want, kind of thing. I like those that are just not like, oh, you must have this, this, and this, and this, and you're like, okay, well, if I don't have that,
Yeah,
then oh no, it's not working. Like 5 clues or something, and you're like, well, I need 6. Like, I don't know. Seems absurd. Yeah, but there's not that many that are like super constrained. But in that way, anyway. When you're testing your own puzzle, are you looking for like ways to bypass your own logic, or do you not care if there are other ways to solve the puzzle as long as it's solvable in one way?
yeah. So this one I probably have a little stronger feelings about. I don't worry about bypasses. I can't remember worrying about bypasses in testing my own puzzles. Um, I know, like, one of my pet peeves is if I test a puzzle and I say, I did, and I sort of say something about my solve path, and it turns out that wasn't the solve path that the setter wanted. And sometimes, probably unintentionally, the impression I get is, oh, you broke the puzzle, and that's terrible now, and it feels like a negative interaction if I didn't, find the thing that they wanted, and I kind of, did something more brute force or something like that. And sometimes I'm really proud I spotted something. A lot of times know I tend to like spot maybe ridiculous ways to make a step. And I've gotten better at recognizing when that's probably not what the setter wants.
Hmm.
uh, if I'm sort of, watching a stream and I'm in chat, and I will more often these days say, well, this is ridiculous and I'm sure it's not intended, but it's kind of cute.
Yeah, there are
But yeah, if
definitely, yeah, some of those times. Sometimes intended, sometimes not. Anyways.
yeah, I just have, and it's like a handful of times, but there have been times where I solved something and it was really hard for me, but I found something that I thought was interesting in the puzzle. And the response is like, oh, the puzzle's ruined now. And I get this negative feeling going away from it.
Mhm. Isaiah had asked a question, which one part is quite a standard question for us. Is what advice do you have for new setters? But he also added on or solvers, which I think is an interesting uh, addition to the question. What do you think about that?
Hmm. Um, so I think advice for setters, I think there's sort of a surplus of advice and sort of tons of videos and stuff for to help guide people in starting the setting process. Um, I think on the solver side, I think it's always good advice to say, give feedback if you can. That's sort of a perennial thing in terms of the testing uh, channels, especially, and uh, you know, constructive feedback. If there was something that was unpleasant about the puzzle, you can let them know what sort of was unappealing, but sort of giving an idea of how the solve went, I think is always a nice thing to get feedback from. And I think that sort of is perennial. I sort of dip in and out in terms of activity, like I said, in the testing channel. So I don't know if it's better than it used to be. I wonder if the enabling threading, which has been around for a while now, but the threading in the testing channel, if that's made it better or the same as before in terms of feedback, but it feels like it's maybe a little bit better. So I think, yeah, the setting is solving advice for setters is still a good one. I think we sort of touched on solving lots of puzzles and thinking of steps that you like and thinking about how they could be used in your own puzzle. That's also always a nice thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I sort of think of now I'm sort of thinking of advice for myself as a solver and trying to think of ways to have more of that kind of persistence that I feel like is uh, my failing. If I can't make progress in 10 minutes, I'm not doing anything with this puzzle, then I'm out. It's
I
kind of a thing that I wish I had more persistence.
I also feel like maybe some good advice could be like if you're not enjoying the puzzle, uh, just say so, and you don't have to finish solving it to say that. Like that's okay. It's actually great feedback to see that someone had tried it and they're like, this isn't for me. And that doesn't mean the puzzle's bad. That just means like maybe the audience isn't as wide as the setter had thought, or maybe they didn't think the audience was very wide. So, um,
Yeah,
still good feedback.
that's something I don't do as much as I feel like maybe I ought to because I do test a lot of puzzles, but I also attempt quite a few more than I end up testing and giving feedback on, and I'm not that good at clicking puzzle attempted or doing anything with that. And I know that's another perennial problem with the testing channel, and I don't have a great answer to that. But I think, I'm reluctant to do the sort of responsible thing and say, okay, click on attempted and maybe post in the feedback channel and say, I got stuck here. I think I'm reluctant to do that a lot of times because then the setter will come back with, oh, here's the next step. And by that time I don't want to finish the puzzle if I
Mhm.
get that stuck. And so I'm sort of a little bit reluctant, but I should do better at that.
Yeah, I think I've maybe put once or twice into a comment like that, like, I will not be finishing the puzzle. Just to be clear, I don't want a hint. Um, but here's the feedback that I'm willing to give. But I know that people are not as direct as me, and it is also a little bit frightening to do that, especially if you're new to solving or testing, for sure. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it's challenging.
definitely. Uh, I hope nobody listening has seen the abrasive side of me Mr. in testing. But sometimes I am like, I'm not going to finish this puzzle. Like, this puzzle is not enjoyable for me, but I like to give feedback. Um, anyways, let's go through some rapid fire questions before we run into our time limit here. So just one or the other, answer as quickly as you can. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 options. Uh, and let's go. So high lowity or odd evenity,
I guess odd even,
local or global deductions,
local,
coloring or good living,
coloring,
simple or complex,
simple,
your favorite digit to dance to,
7,
geometry or arithmetic,
geometry,
penpa, f puzzles, sudoku maker, or something else,
Sudoku maker, unless it's pencil puzzle,
sudoku or pencil puzzles,
probably Sudoku,
chaos or order,
chaos,
big or little,
little,
digital or analog,
analog,
cages or lines,
lines,
arrows or dots,
arrows,
indexers or chess constraints.
indexers,
To disambiguate a puzzle, a given or an extra rule.
uh, extra rule, but I should be better about givens.
Outside or inside clues.
What was that?
Outside or inside clues.
Uh, inside,
Cheese or bread.
cheese,
What kind of cheese?
Dubliner,
Good or evil.
good,
Lawful or chaotic.
chaotic.
All right, that's it.
All right.
So, givens. What's the deal?
Yeah, so that I think is another like thing that I haven't actively worked on, but I feel like I ought to is the allergy to givens, and that like I'm pretty sure has been a topic of discussion probably on this channel and definitely in various Discord situations, and it's just something that uh I don't think of doing it, and I think I am probably worried that I don't know how to do it, and I should really try to um, figure out what is the art of the given. Because I have looked at various times at my sort of catalog of puzzles, and it is pretty striking how few givens I've ever used, and I don't think that's a particularly uh, uh, admirable quality in itself.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I don't know if it's like a bad thing not to use givens. I mean, like some people just prefer not to use them, but like, I don't know. It's an interesting debate. I think it's interesting for sure not having givens in a puzzle, but I don't think it's always necessary to avoid them at all costs, I guess.
Yeah. That's another thing that like I admire about the gas puzzles is how freely they use givens and it is still a great puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Chameleon asked, and I guess this is probably a rapid fire, but you can answer it in slow time. Setting puzzles or knitting?
So probably setting puzzles. I've sort of slowed down in both of those categories recently, but I did want to show for any people who are into math. I brought one piece of knitting which might interest people where I did a scarf that is a cellular automaton scarf. So
Wow, that's awesome. That must have taken forever.
so yeah, the it was a long project. The pattern is generated by cellular automaton. I think I did it by hand, and so it never repeats, but it has this kind of cool organic look to it.
Yeah, that's very cool. Speaking of stepping away from puzzle setting or hobbies like that, um, talk about maybe the importance of like the burnout or breaks from those creative endeavors.
Yeah, I think that's something to sort of be uh, aware of, and it can be really helpful to take breaks or just sort of make a conscious decision of what is something that will be helpful for me at this point. Does is am I putting too much pressure on this project? Am I losing perspective and just being able to sort of think about what is helpful for me right now and knowing what you can do with that, just being conscious of it, I guess, is the main thing.
Mm-hmm. Have you taken any like very self-aware breaks, like, oh, I'm gonna take like this much time off of setting or something like that, or solving, or is it just sort of a natural thing that happens?
Yeah, so I say that I don't do it very much. I haven't sort of had a very conscious approach to it. I think um probably the most conscious I am of setting is a few things that are sort of time constrained, like the Secret Santa, which I really enjoy. I should mention that's something that has been sort of a highlight of puzzle setting for me. But that's always a pretty uh, pressured time, and then I'm not likely to do much setting right after that.
Yeah, yeah. Secret Santa is a good time.
Also in chat, they're talking about Mobius loop scarves, and that is a whole thing. There are whole uh, books on non-orientable knitting projects and stuff.
You made a lot of puzzles for packs and stuff. What do you think about uh, some debate over like the I know some packs are available for everyone, but some are behind a paywall and stuff, and then those puzzles kind of like uh I don't know. Some people say they like go there to die, but then like other people are like, they get solved by a lot of people sometimes, but it's hard to kind of throw a puzzle in there, to be lost to the vault.
Yeah, that's something I've thought about because I sort of decided a while back to make a doc with all the puzzles that I've made that I really feel most satisfied with. And I noticed like about 7 of them are puzzles that are not like on my LMD page or any place because they're in packs or because they are like birthday puzzles or
Hmm.
because they're Secret Santa puzzles, things like that. Like the only killer puzzle I made that I actually think is good was a Secret Santa puzzle. And so nobody's probably done it. So, uh, maybe 2 people have done it. But and I don't know like what a good solution to that is. I think it's perfectly reasonable to have packs that are behind paywalls if everything is made clear above board, and there are upsides and downsides to that, but it's just something that I've noticed like uh, it is weird to have puzzles that I like that I know are not as accessible in terms of discoverability
Right.
as others. I've never done anything like behind a paywall as far as I know, but like even if it's a free pack, it still isn't something that you just stumble on
Right. Yeah.
months after the fact.
Yeah. In a way, even the free ones kind of like are in there and like I don't know, concealed by the pack itself. And like if you're if you're the 20th puzzle or the 50th puzzle in a pack, how many people are realistically going to solve that? I don't know. It seems a bit, I don't know. There's some perspective on it that's more negative than others. But I don't know. Packs are popular though. People like making packs, and it is fun to make a
Yeah,
pack.
I think they're nice, and they give you that sort of theme and structure. So I think a lot of good puzzles come out of them. That you can get packs that sort of really delve into a constraint and give people a sort of thorough education in how things what kind of tricks you can do with a constraint. That's really cool. And a lot of times they'll be sort of graded by difficulty, and they make a big splash maybe if they're on a channel or something. But
Mm-hmm.
it is, yeah, it is um, interesting. I see Rockrat Zero talking about releasing older puzzles from older free packs, and yeah, I want to get that one with Analytical and Rockrat Zero, the uh, Synaptic something. I forget what the name was, but one of us should publish that.
What's your biggest puzzling regret? Is there any puzzle that you want to redo or take back?
Like the first one that I published in CTC, probably that was just like a dumb one-off, and it would have been nicer looking back if it had been that second puzzle that I talked about was the first one that I put into testing. But bygones are bygones, I guess.
Do you feel like you're good at writing the rules to your own puzzles if they're not standard?
Oh gosh. Um, that is tricky. I think yeah, rule drafting is its whole own thing to
Mm-hmm.
talk about, and we won't get into any depth on it. I think I do my best, but I am very aware that there are some like even some standard rules that are hard to write in a way that makes sense. I remember trying to talk about Renban to people who are not into puzzles and them saying this makes no sense. These words are used all wrong and stuff like that.
It surprises me sometimes how few people know the words like adjacent, consecutive, these words that like are very commonplace in puzzles, and I'm like, you don't know what that means? Okay, I guess it means this. Like, I don't know. I thought that was a common word, but it's just common for me because I do puzzles all the time. Orthogonal,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, orthogonally adjacent. Like, what the heck does that mean? Um,
And I think non-puzzle people, rows go both ways.
oh my
It's just
god.
horizontal rows and vertical rows.
Yeah, yeah. Or which way is the column again? I'm like, what? How do you what? How do you not know that? Uh, yeah, but of course, math and computer science and all that stuff like that's people who are into that know those things. But what about titles? I think we talked about that for a second, but how do you find titles?
Yeah, I try to give really stupid, ridiculous titles. Like I don't have good ideas for titles, and so I lean into making dumb, bad titles. For a while, I was going to that. There's a website that gives you a three-word uh, phrase for any point on the Earth that you pick, and so just like
Mm.
pick a random point on the Earth and see if I can find three words that go together. And that's how I got. And then I throw out one usually because that's too long for a title. So that's how I got Lavender Pots was a
Hmm.
recent puzzle, and that was from the three-word thing on some point on the Earth. But I don't like titling puzzles, and I do like the LMD habit of just describing the puzzle. I think that's a nice thing, actually. Having titles for puzzles is kind of funny when you think about it.
Yeah, in a way. I think it gives them a little bit more personality, though, in a way. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying not to do it, but I think it's another one of those things that is common in the hobby, and then people outside the hobby are probably, wait, you have a title for this?
mhm. Definitely the like constraints in brackets afterwards is becoming even more standard now, which I love. Because again,
Yep,
LMD does not have the like thumbnail or anything or the rules or tags or anything like that that you can just well, it does have tags, but not very useful tags sometimes. That you can see what this puzzle is before clicking on it. So that's very helpful to have there. Oh,
agreed.
Palfly had asked a question. Sorry, Palfly. About symmetry, I think. I did see that. What's your thoughts on symmetry in puzzles, both visual and logical?
Yeah, I like symmetry usually visually. If I have an option to put it in there, I think it's good. I think um, if the question is about GSP, what is that, girth symmetric property or proposition or something, but
Placement?
um, maybe. Um, yeah, I think it is. I find it often a little bit disappointing if a puzzle actually has like a global symmetry that is uh, enforced. That's sort of not to my taste, I would say. Um, but I like, I really like when there is a creative symmetry break. That is often one of my favorite things as a solver, and if I can pull it off as a setter, is when a symmetry break sort of is the aha moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think a silly younger me said once that you could make a puzzle easier by just making it symmetric logic, and then it's like the same thing, but on the other side, which is kind of, I think, a bad idea actually. But um, if you make the symmetry break interesting, I think it could be good. um, we're almost up. We're almost up with our time. Is there any question that you want to be asked that I did not ask that you want to answer?
Let's see. I think nothing's coming to mind. So this went faster than I expected,
It always
and
does.
it was pleasant.
I'm glad to hear it was pleasant. Uh,
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Ambrose, for coming on and joining us for today's Sitter Spotlight.
thank,
Good to be back.
thanks for hosting.
And
Yeah, thanks for hosting. Thanks, chat.
usually we would have you say who's next, but I think everyone already kind of knows who's next. But you can say it anyway if you want.
You didn't prompt me for that, so I think, was it Pietato?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, that should be a good one. Anyways, well, thank you everyone, and we will see you next time with Pietato. And thank you again, Ambrose, for joining us. Bye everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks.